This is my heater. I dare you to hit it.
He'll be sorry.
Want the heater? I'll give it to you.
Basketball, maybe they don't hit it.
A swing and a drive to deep right.
Clear the deck. Cannonball coming.
Left field. It is out of here.
What up? What's good, Baseball Unstitched? We are back. Wow, the trade deadline was fun. I know we enjoyed it. A lot has been happening, and we've got a solid episode for you guys today, starting as always with This Week in Baseball. And then we've got a real treat for you guys today. Our own Jackson Scudder was at Bristol Motor Speedway this weekend and was actually part of the Tarp crew. So you'll get to hear his story and what his weekend was like. And then finally, we're going to end on a trade deadline recap and give you our winners and losers for the deadline. But as always, the only place we could possibly start. Flax, how was the weekend?
Weekend was good. Parents were in town. We had not one men's league game, but two, because you and I were both elected to the All-Star game for our team. We won both games. An All-Star game we probably should not have won, considering the talent on both sides. But no, Sunday's game was good. We played well. It was good to have my parents in town. Went and saw Paul Skeens pitch in Colorado. Jordan Beck roughed him up a bit. I love Jordan Beck right from the get-go was just ready to jump all over Paul Skeens. Hit a foul home run off 99 up and in his first at-bat, and then ended up taking a yard backside to shut down his game. So, yeah, weekend was good.
Yeah, it was craziness. Getting to watch the fanfare around Paul Skeens was exactly what I expected it to be. Tried to get there early enough to watch the entirety of his bullpen, but it turned out you had to get there when gates opened in order to make sure you were on the railing. There was no spots. I'd also like to point out, because you guys can't see it, Flax came in today and his name on the pod is Bob Feller. He expressed to me the only reason he picked Bob Feller was because that's what his stuff feels like on the hill right now. Flax has been rolling, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows he's rolling.
Shout out my
so
pitching
well.
coach.
You know, I do my best, but I don't know if I created Bob Feller. Now, you were huffing it this weekend, so good on you. Flax, what happened this week in baseball, man?
This week in baseball, we start with the trade deadline, and one A.J. Preller traded away 11 prospects, and there is no way to look at that other than that is wild. That's a lot of prospects to give away, a lot of very high-level prospects, including the number 3 prospect in baseball and the number 1 prospect in their pipeline ranking, Leo DeVries. The Speedway Classic at Bristol Motor Speedway was this week. Like Ryan mentioned, we had Jackson on this week to talk about his experience on the grounds crew. As Jackson put it, it was the Eli White game. He put out 2 home runs, put on an absolute show for the fans. And then trade deadline was last Friday. It was an absolute doozy. I was actually in a yoga class as it was finishing, and Ryan and Jackson were all over the finishing of it. But it was a wild one to the end. And I think this is the second straight year that we've really had this type of frenzy. I like this movement that we're getting because it's truly become a seller's market, which means we have more players out there that will be on the block. And we'll talk about some of our winners and losers today and who maybe didn't take advantage of that enough. Also this week, Salvador Perez set the franchise record for the Kansas City Royals for most seasons with 20 home runs. He hit his 20th home run of the season the other day. That was his 8th season hitting such mark. And last on the list, Roman Anthony, first career walk-off hit this year, or for the Red Sox in his career, as did Brenton Doyle hit his first career walk-off home run in one of the craziest games we've ever seen. I think somebody said we got into August and Denver turned into a football town. And that was that. That was this week in baseball.
Love it. Yeah, 17-16 Rockies in that one. They were down 9-0 at one point in time. A nutty game, and somehow, you and I weren't there.
I just want to put it out there that I did tweet around when the score was like 16-10. I think I had said something like, this game is far from over. I did not think that the Rockies were going to put up 7 unanswered runs in the 8th and 9th. Nor did I think it was going to come with 5 runs in the 9th. But the fact that Brenton Doyle stepped up and launched a ball to left center. I also want to say this about Brenton Doyle because he had some really tough stuff to deal with like very early in the season, and you could see that it was tough for him to get his legs back under him in the game. And the Rockies made a really smart decision giving him a couple days off to just be on the bench, be in the ballpark, take his time, and get his feet back under him. Since that happened, Brenton Doyle has been fantastic for the Rockies, which is what they kind of need. They needed him to start playing well, Taro Estrada to be healthy, Ezekiel Tovar to be healthy. That very much is their core up the middle of the field right now. And then obviously guys like Jordan Beck going off and starting to pop balls out of the yard. So might be the most exciting team in baseball post All-Star break, them and the White Sox. And I am being about as serious as I could be when I say that.
White Sox, Rockies, and Marlins. Maybe your 3 hottest teams in baseball. Who thought that one was coming?
Who would have thought?
But, we'll go on tangents and talk to you guys about baseball all day long. Let's move in to something that was very enjoyable for us to do, and that was interview our very own Jackson Scudder about his experience at the Bristol Motor Speedway game this past weekend. All right, Jackson had a pretty cool weekend. Something we've been excited to share with you guys. And I shouldn't say we. I should say Jackson himself. Jackson, tell people what you had the opportunity to do this past weekend.
Me and a bunch of baseball players at ETSU, which is where I go, we were on the Tarp duty for the Bristol game between the Braves and the Reds. And as you might have seen, we had a lot of action this weekend. We had a lot of stuff to do, and it was a very cool experience.
Yeah, you kept texting us, telling us that you were a bit afraid of having to pull a tarp in front of 85,000 people and on national TV. And I thought to myself, is it even going to rain? And I didn't for a second check the weather. So I was like, maybe he won't have to. Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah, it ended up being a very eventful couple days.
Yes.
It looked like you guys did a good job. Let's start with that first and foremost. Little applause.
Well prepared.
Yes, well prepared. The Tarp team, a lot of action. I on the other hand, did recognize what the weather was, decided not to say anything because adding to your stress levels did not make sense. But listen, let's tell some people about this whole event. Obviously, ETSU is involved where you go to school. Tell us how this kind of came up, what's going on, and how you guys ended up within the Bristol Motor Speedway game and experience.
Yeah, so my head coach at ETSU, Joe Panucci, texted me about 3 weeks ago and was like, hey, need your help at the Bristol game coming up soon. And my first thought was I'm doing concessions or I'm doing security. And then a couple days later, he was like, y'all are going to be on tarp duty. And I'm like, all right then, that's pretty cool. And then we found out also as well, we have a turf field at ETSU. We tore it all up and we are getting the turf outfield from that game. So the Bristol game right now, it got played yesterday. They're tearing up the turf right now, and it's being transported over to our field, and they're going to lay that down, which is just absolutely awesome. And yeah, so we found out we were on tarp crew, and then we had to be there 4 days early for training, which was a whole thing within itself.
So they took the tarp off the field and hang dried it before transporting it to ETSU, I would assume, considering how much rain it got.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about your days of training, because it was a lot, apparently.
Yeah, so we got there on the Wednesday. Game was supposed to be played on Saturday. Got there on the Wednesday at 3 o'clock. We got brought down to the field, and they explained, everything that we were going to have to do. And they originally told us, if y'all get to go, y'all need to get the tarp unrolled and onto the field in 2 minutes. And we all looked at each other like we just got told that we had to build a rocket flight to space. So the day we got there, we practiced. I think we did it 2 or 3 times at like half speed, 3/4 speed. And then there was actually weather in the forecast later that night, so they just sent us home and we came back the next day. And the next day we did it 2 or 3 times at full speed and got it in about 1:30, which he said was one of the best times that he'd ever seen, which was pretty impressive. And then the Friday, the day before the game, we had to be there the full day, just because they needed the tarp on the field more than as preparation for the day before. So we were there pretty much the full day Friday. Got to experience what catering was like at the MLB level, which I'm just going to say was absolutely awesome. They had a full catering tent that had a salad bar, fresh hot food, a slushy machine, like 6 coolers full of every drink imaginable. It was... That might have been the best experience. That might have been the best part of it was a full catering tent. Definitely enjoyed that.
Man, that's awesome. That's what I was curious about was like, did they just have you guys sectioned off all the way over here, or were they just like, listen, we got a lot of personnel here doing a lot of different things. We got to feed everybody. I was really curious about that, so I'm glad you brought that up unprompted.
Yeah. So the first 2 days we were there, we got they brought us food. And so when we got a meal ticket that Friday for lunch, and so I'm expecting maybe some sandwiches, like a water cooler or something.
Yeah,
I
right.
walked in and it looked like a convenience store. Like it looked like I just walked in a gas station. It was absolutely unreal. And especially that Friday and then the Saturday especially, we were all tired and exhausted. That's a slushy on Saturday saved my life, I'm pretty sure. But it was awesome. It was very cool.
We'll call it a Buc-ee's. I think that's for
Yeah,
the
it was
MLB
very
sake.
similar to that. It felt like that.
We'll call it a Buc-ee's, not a
MLB's
gas
Buc-ee's.
station. But yeah, I like that. That's awesome.
So we make it through some days of training. We get to go to the MLB's awesome Buc-ee's convenience store in order to keep you guys ready to rock the entire time. Day of the game comes, and you know what the weather forecast is at that point. If I had to guess, where's your head at when you recognize that you pulling the tarp is a 99.9% chance?
Yeah, so Friday, day before the game, we're all looking at the forecast, and we know there's rain for the day, but it's pop-up showers, and if you live in the South, you know there's a chance of rain every day. So Saturday, we wake up, we had to be at the field at 7 a.m., which, yay, loved that. Got there 7 a.m. and just kind of sat around and hung out for most of the day. The tarp was off the field then. And then about 11, we got called down to the field. We were like, hey, bunch of showers in the area. Pulled the tarp at noon for the first time. Wasn't the last time that day. Pulled the tarp on, and then we're looking at the forecast the rest of the day. And there's just continuous rain throughout the day. And we know also that MLB is going to do everything humanly possible to get this game in.
Yeah.
And
right.
so from probably about 2 or 3 o'clock on, we were standing behind the tarp. And we pulled it, I think, at 3 and then again at 5. After every time we pulled it, we're also running to and from center field, getting turfus for them to pour on the field. And then the grounds crew that the MLB hires sitting there raking it, sitting there watering it, getting everything figured out. First time we pulled it with actual full fanes there was, we got it off the field about an hour before original game time, which was 7:15. And we pulled it off, and we're thinking maybe they can get the game started. They do the full introductions, they do the whole pit crew thing, and as they're about to go back, they go into the dugouts, they're about to come out and start the game, it downpours. So that was our first full tarp pull on national television. We got it all out, and it's going to feel weird to say, adrenaline was pumping. I
was going to ask, were there enough people in the stadium that when you took it off, people started cheering because they were excited that things were going to start happening? Yeah.
There was, so we pulled the tarp, we got the tarp on the field, and then a bunch of us we had a trailer in center field, a bunch of us went out there to just breathe for a little bit.
Sure.
And so we got a text from the trailer, from the other guys, like, hey, we're about to pull the tarp off. So we ran through the gate center field, and they started cheering when they saw us running back onto the field.
Oh, my gosh.
And one of my buddies, looks up and is doing this, telling the crowd to get going. So we pull the tarp off the field. The place goes crazy. It was actually, I got goosebumps. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
So
That's
we
cool.
pulled the tarp off the field. They said 9:40 start time. Got the tarp off. Got warmed up a little bit. And it looked like they were going to try to play the game. First half of the inning, Chase Burns comes in, throwing 100, 101. And I'm like, all right, this is awesome. Bottom of the first inning, it starts pouring again.
Yeah.
About 3 pitches in, Ozzie Albies is standing in the middle of a lake at second base.
Yep.
So we knew any second now. It was like we were standing there all ready to go. It got to the point where they couldn't play on it. So the ground crew came on and tried to dump a bunch of turfus in the puddles to basically try to get the puddles up before we
Right
put
before
the
you
tarp
laid
on.
the tarp over it, sure.
Yeah, so got that up. Then we pulled the tarp again. Let's just say the fans weren't too thrilled to see us again.
Sure.
So we pulled the tarp again. Then we found out about 30 minutes later that game was getting postponed till tomorrow. We had to stay there and like help sandbag and do some stuff like that.
Right.
And then we found out we had to be at the field again 6:30 the next morning. So I got about 3.5 hours of sleep that night. Got back to the field the next morning, pulled the tarp off, and spent about 4 hours helping the grounds crew get the field ready. We used 60 bags of turfus on the infield. They had to fly in 4 pallets of turfus overnight in between Saturday and Sunday. So we used 60 bags of turfus on the infield. And these were 50-pound bags. We were carrying them to and from, dumping them out all over the place.
Oh, my God.
So we got that ready. Then after about 10, 11 o'clock on Sunday, we pretty much didn't have anything to do, which was awesome to sit back and relax, watch a baseball game. Eli White legacy game, hit 2 bombs.
Yeah, absolutely it was.
Yeah, this is the most sore I've been in about 3 years as well. The legs are not feeling hot right now.
I have 2 questions. One, how bad did that dirt look when you guys initially took the tarp off in the morning on Sunday?
It was really bad. They spent the first hour or 2 scraping all the turfus off from the night before.
Yeah.
Basically rebuilding the entire infield, like
That's
on the fly.
Crazy.
So they scraped all the turfus off, put that in carts and dumping them out. And
Yeah.
then they put 60 bags of new turfus on, basically, like I said, rebuilding the entire infield.
I'm assuming they drove around and dragged the infield 2 or 3 times after getting the new stuff out there, and then watered it a couple of times, trying to get it like somewhat compacted down for them to play on. Because those guys can't play on like turfus, right? That'd be like those fields that we used to play out when we were a kid. When you'd show up on a Saturday morning, and someone's dad was there just dumping bags and scraping it over puddles, and I mean that's not you can't play a Major League Baseball game on that stuff.
Yeah, they did a great job. The grounds crew that the MLB had there did an awesome job. Shout out to my guy Tony. He was kind of our boss for the weekend. I've never seen a guy who was I've never seen a guy who was more relaxed under such bad circumstances than he was. He was able to kind of keep his cool and composure on Saturday, despite the fact that he explained to us he was kind of in charge when MLB plays games overseas and games at neutral sites like this.
Oh, okay.
He's the guy they bring in to kind of take care of the field.
Wow.
So he said he's flying up to Williamsport like today for the game they play up there every year.
Yeah.
So really cool guy. He did an awesome job. I just want to shout him out. But the grounds crew did an awesome job throughout the entire day. They probably slept less than we did, which is saying something because we didn't sleep a lot either.
Shout out Tony. I kind of want to be Tony.
out
That
Tony.
sounds incredible.
I don't disagree.
Yeah,
I don't disagree. I think I'm in on being Tony too. That sounds like a cool job. Shout out to Tony again.
he was the man.
Awesome. Well, Jackson, you not only were part of the grounds crew, but you got to be at this event. So tell us a little bit more about once the event kind of kicked off, the intros, which you saw the day before, obviously, and then how the actual game went, your interactions that you had with players, coaches, obviously by happenstance, but tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so the day the game was supposed to be played, it was a full house. And just the little bit of baseball we got that day, it was absolutely electric. Chase Burns, for those who don't know, went to high school in Nashville, about 3 or 4 hours away from Bristol. So him getting to pitch, when they announced him, the place went nuts. It was an awesome environment. The next day, there wasn't as many people there as expected, but it was still, I think, probably 50 to 75% full, which is more than most MLB games, period.
Yeah.
When Eli White hit the home run, I believe, in the second inning, and the NASCAR did the lap around the field, or around the track, one of the coolest things I've ever seen, because we were also about 30 feet away from the track, so I turned around and I see a Corvette going 105 around me holding up a home run sign. Absolutely awesome. In terms of different interactions we had, the
We need to get
Tarp.
some mascots. We need to get some mascots in carts that just go right around the outfield warning track when home runs get hit, holding up
I'm
a sign
so
that
in.
just says home run. We gotta
I'm so
find a way
in.
to manufacture things like that in the MLB.
Yeah. Well, I was saying in terms of different interactions we had, the Tarp was placed on the third base or the first base line, which is where the Braves dugout was. So we got a lot of different interactions with them. And I'll say this: every single interaction me and everyone else on the Tarp crew had with the Braves players was awesome. They were really nice, really down to earth guys. One of my buddies talked to Ozzy, Alwies, Michael Harris, Jerks and Profar was going around. Absolutely awesome interactions. The one I had when we pulled the Tarp for the last time Saturday night at it was 10:15 at night. I was standing in front of the dugout. Jared Kelnick walked out to me and just kind of asked, were y'all ready for this? And I'm like, absolutely not. We were not. And then the next day he recognized me, gave me a fist bump. Kelnick, awesome guy. Austin Riley, also he was walking back to the clubhouse the night that the game got postponed. He looked at us and said, y'all need to go dry off. Good luck tomorrow. It was just it was just very cool. After the game, the Braves first base coach walked up to us and said that we did an awesome job. I was just very impressed. Braves players were going out of their way to talk to us. Reds players probably would have done the same, but we just weren't down there near them. So
Yeah, right. I feel like for the situation you guys were in, you guys got a lot of praise on Twitter as well. A lot of people were very impressed about how many times you guys did it. And now, for our listeners, you know that they pulled the Tarp on and off the field probably 2 to 3 times as many times as you think they did, or as many times as you saw them actually do, which is even more impressive because you guys had to just keep doing it. But also, we've seen it happen so many times. It could have gone the other way so quickly on social media. One wrong step, and it's all over social media. It's all over Twitter. It's all over Instagram. So you guys not only did a great job, but you guys also kept yourself away from being the talk of the town for a very long time. It would have been good advertising for the MLB, but it'll be interesting to see if they decide to try and do this again, considering the circumstances.
Jackson, real quick question for you. Can you tell everybody what the protocol is if you get stuck under the tarp? Because you did
during
have to learn.
during the training sessions, we were told if you trip up and you get under the tarp, stay where you are, don't move, they will get you later. And basically, in all uncertain terms, we were told that the field is more important than us at that very moment. They will get us out and everything will be fine, but the tarp's going on the field.
I need everybody to know that as somebody who got to pull a tarp in minor league baseball, they tell you the exact same thing in minor league baseball, which is why I was so excited to ask Jackson this question before this and now, so all of you can hear it. Legitimately, don't move. They'll come grab you. You'll be fine. That is the whole thing.
Was it windy? Or was it just kind of just...
It was not too windy.
That was helpful.
Luckily, that would have made everything 10 times worse. But I'll say this, everyone, including me, as I was running across the field with the tarp, I was watching every single step. I was not about to trip and end up under that tarp.
Smart man. Smart man. Listen, you got to focus in front. Can't worry about everybody else. You just got to pull the tarp and focus in front.
Yeah,
right.
But
I wanna end this with something really important here. Late innings, really close game. Matt McClain comes up. Was that ball gone off the bat when he hit it, in your opinion?
absolutely, we all thought it was gone. Like I said, we were down the first baseline and he hit it backside. We all thought that ball was gone. We were all like, that ball's gone off the bat. And I still thought it went out because I believe Eli White wasn't right. And when he reached up, it looked like it went over the wall, but it looked like it just came back down and hit right above his glove. But I thought that ball was gone. I think everybody in the stadium thought that ball was gone.
I thought it was gone too. And I figured with your view from the first baseline, you were the best person to possibly ask this question.
Seriously.
Oh my goodness. I love it.
Clip it. Jackson thinks it was a home run.
Boom. This game's under protest. P. Jackson, dude, glad you had such an awesome experience at Bristol Motor Speedway. Excellent job to you and the rest of the ETSU group who was there helping. Thank you for sharing all of this on the podcast as always. As most of you know, Jackson's normally on here to tell us what we do right and wrong or give you some stats on Twitter for himself, for us. But come hang out with us a little bit more. Jackson, thanks again for coming on and sharing your experience at the Bristol Motor Speedway game this year. All right, hope you guys enjoyed that. Jackson, as you could tell, had an absolute blast getting this opportunity. We're extremely happy for him getting this opportunity. Thank you for the MLB for allowing ETSU to be part of this whole situation in Bristol Motor Speedways as well. Moving right along, though, as I like to say, and the trade deadline recap got kind of long, Flax, huh?
Well, listen, like I said before, it was a frenzy. It was a Friday frenzy. Was it Friday or was it a Thursday?
It was a Thursday. But
it was a Thursday.
You know, listen, it was such a frenzy that you forgot what day it was, and I can't
You're right.
really blame you for that. But let's rock and roll here, guys. We've got 18 trades that we didn't talk about. We're going to run you through these trades with some real quick tidbits, and then we're going to move right on to my winner and my loser, and Flax's winner and Flax's loser of the deadline. But let's start this off with the trade that we have to talk about, and there's no question about it. The Padres acquire right-handed pitcher Mason Miller and left-handed pitcher J.P. Sears from the Athletics for Leo DeVries and three other prospects, DeVries being the number 3 prospect in all of baseball. This was a big one, Flax.
Yeah, I could not believe that Mason Miller got moved, but the price was too high for what was being asked and what was being willing to be given by teams for very high leverage relievers this year.
Couldn't agree more. Number 2 on the list, and this was one that we weren't sure if it was going to happen, but did the Astros reacquire maybe, Carlos Correa and cash from the Twins for a left-handed pitcher. This was a fun one to see, honestly. I know people don't always love Correa, but he's going back home, and it's a dangerous time for a lot of teams in the AL West.
Yeah, and he's already starting to prove his worth there very, very quickly. He stepped in the first day, got a hitters meeting together, made sure he understood that everybody was on the same page, and he fit right in where he needed to. They put him at third base. He made some very good plays. And they're going to give Jeremy Pena an opportunity to get his feet back under him. Also, grabbing a guy like Ramon Urias on top of that really helps pull that whole thing together.
Completely agree. Next, the Diamondbacks. Big trade deadline for them, moving Eugenio Suarez to the Mariners for a package that was headlined by their number 8 prospect at the time, Tyler Locklear. I know you were excited to see where Eugenio Suarez went, Flax. Did you like where he landed?
Yeah, I thought it was great, right? Jerry DiPoto was ready to make some moves. I think some guys were not happy to see Locklear get moved just because he's one of their most upside bats in the pipeline. But let's be honest with ourselves. How many of those upside pipeline bats for the Mariners have come up and actually done what you want them to do? Wouldn't you rather have a proven bat and then potentially go out in the next couple of years and go buy some more of those bats to keep this train rolling? I think that's probably the right move if Seattle can keep stepping in that direction. So I like this for them, and it was nice to see them make the big splash moves that they did. Another big one that happened, Johan Duran, which we were a day early on Hug Watch with Johan Duran from the Minnesota Twins to the Philadelphia Phillies for Eduardo Tate, the number 4 Phillies prospect, and right-handed pitcher Mick Abel. Mick Abel has already made a couple of starts this year in the big leagues. Definitely looks like he has the ability to be a future long-term big league starter. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Mick Abel already has come up, made 1 start for them, and was excellent in it. I kind of liked what the Phillies did here. I really thought this was going to be a name like Aiden Miller or Justin Crawford. When I saw what they did here, it told me everything I needed to know. The Twins are looking for an extremely high upside young guy that they think they can develop. Tate is a large-bodied 18-year-old who is already at the high A level, and I believe he's the first guy in over 20 years to play at the high A level at 18 years old for the Twins. So they love the upside they see in him. Again, high leverage relievers. they paid this this trade deadline.
Yeah, and we could talk about another one. The Yankees acquired right-handed pitcher David Bednar from the Pirates, catcher Rafael Flores, another catcher Edglin Perez, and an outfielder Brian Sanchez went back over to Pittsburgh. This one was interesting. David Bednar's last couple of years have been a little bit of a roller coaster with some very, very high highs. It seems like the Yankees are trying to ride on that high that he's in right now. And to be honest, it was weird to see them give up so many catchers, considering the last couple of catchers they've given up have proven to go on to do good things in other places. So they seem to have an eye for him. They just don't seem to like to keep them.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think one of the big things here that the Yankees saw is David Bednar really changed his pitch profile this year. He's throwing the curveball way more than he's ever thrown it, and it's been a huge differentiator for him here in 2025. He's also the type of guy who, in quote-unquote low-leverage situations, is an absolute merchant. Now, I only bring that up because he's more than likely not going to be asked to be in the ninth inning for the Yankees. You may see seventh or eighth for him, but I think he's going to be in a great spot here and be very successful for the Yankees down the stretch.
The next guy on the list was Rangers. They acquired Merrill Kelly from the D-backs. I loved this one for the Rangers because the Rangers need some starting pitching help to continue to build that rotation. They gave up left-handed pitcher Cole Drake, right-handed pitcher David Hageman, and left-handed pitcher Mitch Bratt.
Yeah, this one's a solid one for them, right? Merrill Kelly has been pitching even above some of the better seasons that he's had. Unfortunately, at the current moment, the Diamondbacks just weren't all that great, right? There's no other way to put it. It just wasn't their year. He's got a pitcher run value of 16, which puts him in the 94th percentile at the current moment, and his off-speed has been absolutely electric this year. I expect this to be a big pickup for the Rangers down the stretch, especially with a guy who is throwing 3 different pitches 20+% of the time.
And real quick, just one more piece here. He's been with the Diamondbacks his entire major league career. It's very clear that the D-backs have had a lot of recent success developing arms and getting guys to the next level for what they have stuff-wise. They absolutely collected an insane amount of arms this trade deadline. This was another opportunity and another example. They grabbed 3 new arms. They're going to try and turn them into what they've turned other guys into. I love this move for the D-backs.
Totally agree with you. The Mets acquired flamethrower Ryan Helsley from the Cardinals for 3 high upside prospects. Flax, I really do believe that the Mets were out to get what they needed in the bullpen, and boy, did they.
Yeah, the Mets gave up a lot this trade deadline, very similar to the Padres, not to the same extent, but certainly gave up a lot of prospects to shore up their bullpen. Helsley's a really good arm. I like him matched up with Edwin Diaz in the back of the bullpen to really lock things down. They needed high power, but they also needed a guy who threw strikes. They've been having struggles with that. Felt like that was the right move for them to go do, and he wasn't the only guy they got.
Moving right along to one of my overall favorite trades of the entire deadline here, the Blue Jays acquire Shane Bieber from the Guardians for right-handed pitcher Cal Stephan. This is a good move, I think, for both teams, and one of the few one-to-ones that we saw this trade deadline.
Yeah, my guess is it was a 1-to-1 because Bieber's still working his way back to the big leagues from some injury stuff. He threw in Buffalo now in the Blue Jays organization in AAA to get it to continue working on his load so that when he can get to the big leagues, he can throw deeper into games. But I love it for the Guardians, right? This is what they do. They go get arms from other people that are maybe a little bit lower on the prospect list, but that they like the stuff of, they fit into their program, and then they turn them into someone who we end up seeing in the back of a bullpen or the middle of a bullpen that can absolutely dominate for you later in games. So this was a good one-for-one trade, it felt like.
Yeah, and Stephan has been absolutely electric this year at the lower minor league levels. He's currently throwing to the tune of a 2.06 ERA and over 91.2 innings, has struck out 99 batters and only walked 18. Opponents are hitting 196 against him. We just watched the Guardians go out and get a potential another 6'4 demon because we know what they do with pitching. Moving right along, of course, the Padres. Surprise, surprise, here we are again. acquiring Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano for, count 'em, six Padres prospects. Flax, you saw the return. You know the guys they gave up. Being a Baltimore Orioles fan, what are your thoughts?
I thought it was a phenomenal job by Mike Elias to leverage a very high upside Ramon Laureano, who's been in the big leagues for a little while now, and a Ryan O'Hearn at the height of his price tag, and leverage him in a deal with a guy who is willing to give up a lot of pieces at this moment to shore up maybe some holes in a lineup for a team that's truly trying to make a push right now. I think four of the six prospects were ranked within the top 30 of San Diego's pipeline. The other two are young, potential high upside arms. When it came down to it, the Orioles added 16 prospects to their pipeline, I believe, across all their trades. This was a massive get for them and a huge part of that. I like this on both sides if you like the Padres going after it. So on to the next piece. The Red Sox acquired right-handed pitcher Dustin May from the Dodgers for outfielder James Tibbs III and Zach Earhart. If you remember, James Tibbs was actually one of the pieces that came over with Kyle Harrison and Jordan Hicks from the Giants in the Rafael Devers trade earlier this year. So interesting for Breslow to move on from him, but Dustin May just adding another arm to a staff that already has a lot of different arms, but has already gone through some injury issues, but they're fighting for a division right now.
Yeah, Andrew Bailey, I think getting the opportunity to work with Dustin May, the thought process here is pretty simple. I think they see the upside there. This was just an interesting trade simply because Tibbs was the main high upside prospect that they got in return for Devers. So very interesting to see where this will all shake out, what type of player Tibbs is at the major league level, and if the Red Sox can keep Dustin May healthy and use that 3,500 RPM breaker that is probably breaking his arm, unfortunately.
When you look at the next one, this one was really interesting. Griffin Jax from the Twins went to the Rays. Another one-for-one trade with Taj Bradley going to Minnesota. Minnesota was in a bit of a fire sale, I think for multiple reasons, trying to move cash off the books with impending sale of the ball club, and because they just felt like they're not going after it this year. They have a bunch of prospects still within the next couple of years that likely are going to start making their way to the big leagues, and they're clearing space for a lot of these guys to get there. Taj Bradley's been very interesting for the Rays. I was shocked to see this is where Griffin Jax went, because I thought maybe a bit more of a dead contender was going to go after him. But if this was the only, especially if this was the only return that was necessary for Minnesota, so I don't know. Your thoughts?
I think that at the end of the day, both teams looked at this as an opportunity to move somewhat controllable pieces, and they just had different needs at the current moment. Bradley being a guy who's in the rotation, I think was extremely important for Minnesota. He's a guy who's got a lot of high upside from an overall standpoint. Good ride on the fastball with some arm side run, still only 24 years old. Whereas I think Tampa Bay sees themselves in a spot where, yes, they faded away a bit in 2025, but they're going to have a good opportunity to compete in 2026, and adding Jax to that bullpen is going to be a big piece for them down the stretch.
And let's not forget, right? Tampa Bay is 5 games out of a very much open AL wildcard race. They very well could hit another hot streak and make their way there. Griffin Jax is a great bullpen piece to help you get there. 2.5 years of control on Griffin Jax, 4.5 years of control on Taj Bradley, considering the rest of this season. Next one, the Yankees again added to their bullpen. Right-handed pitcher Camilo Doval from the Giants. 4 prospects from the Yankees made their way to San Francisco. Thoughts on this one for you, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, listen, this was a move that it was less about confusing. A lot of people felt like the Giants did not get enough within the prospect package just due to what relievers were going for. Doval, if we're all being honest, has been a very volatile commodity. He's got one of the best fastballs in all of baseball. The arm is spectacular. I think the Yankees are definitely selling out for that high upside arm, And they knew
Absolutely.
they had to have more octane in that bullpen after they watched what the Padres and the Mets did with their bullpens. I recognize that these are groups that are on the other side of the league, the Phillies as well. But you have to be able to compete with those guys in October, and the Yankees wanted to make sure that they added to their pen as well. I liked this move for the Mets. I think this was one that was very interesting for everybody, and that is Tyler Rogers, the submariner himself, moving to the New York Mets in exchange for 2 high upside prospects in Blade Tidewell and Drew Gilbert. Also coming over in the deal to the Giants was Jose Buto, who has also in the past been a highly rated prospect. Flax, this was a pretty interesting one, and I know you're big on Drew Gilbert.
Yeah, I'm big on Gilbert and Tidwell, both Tennessee guys. Tidwell's made a couple spot starts for the Mets already this year. I think very much has upside to be a number 3, number 4 for a long time for any big league ball club with the stuff that he's got. Gilbert's that guy who brings that piss and vinegar to the field and is always going to be a good clubhouse match. I think he fits for the Giants for kind of just bringing that baseball guy into the mix when he's ready, especially with them trading a guy like Mike Yastrzemski, one of their main outfielders. Now you have open slots in the outfield that are starting to be created for younger guys like that to make their way into those spots. Tyler Rogers is truly a rental piece for the Mets. He does not have any more years of control. He will be a free agent after this year. So interesting to give up 3 pieces, especially 2 guys who either have already impacted or could impact your team in the next couple of years as the Mets. But it just tells you that they're truly going for the division and going for a World Series this year and planning on filling those gaps with money however they need to in the next couple of off seasons.
And to me, this is Cohen giving his people the ability to do whatever they need to do to go win. And I have a level of appreciation for that. This next one got a little bit convoluted, so we're going to stick with the main piece that got moved here, and that was the Reds acquiring Zach Littell in a 3-team trade. Liked this move for the Reds. A lot of people didn't feel like the Reds did enough, especially when we were on Twitter X. Everybody told us about it. I felt like the Reds got something here. I thought this was a good little move for them.
Yeah, it definitely led me to believe that the Reds were being a little bit more of a buyer when it first happened. Now, seeing how things shook out, I don't know that I'd still call them a buyer, but they definitely weren't a seller, right? It was very much just a move of kind of exchanging some pieces. I really like this for the Rays. The Rays not only grabbed Nick Fortes at the trade deadline, but also Hunter Fiducia. Hunter Fiducia is a really good left-handed bat. Nick Fortes is a really good defensive catcher. I think you have a good 1-2 at your backstop there, moving on from Danny Jansen during the trade deadline as well, and Ben Rortvedt in this trade specifically, who was getting a little bit long in the tooth with plenty of opportunities at the major league level and never really turning into much. The move for the Dodgers acquiring those 2 arms, Serwanowski and Paul Gervais, it's another example of a group that feels they're comfortable developing arms. We've seen it over the last 5 or 6 years. They do develop arms, but they develop them almost to the point of breaking, and then as they start to get utilized in a consistent setting, do unfortunately start to break. The hope is that as we get more prospects into that system and as they learn from mistakes, we start to see a shift in that and they start to continue to develop in a healthier and a better way. So again, seeing them get more arms with the opportunity to do that, I like. All around, it felt like everybody kind of came out of this in a pretty good place. I thought the Rays made some good moves here. And again, I said it last week, I do like the direction that team is moving in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and let's move back here, though, on the flip side to some quote-unquote piss and vinegar. And the Phillies went out there and they got a piss and vinegar type guy in Harrison Bader for 2 prospects. Love this move for the Phillies. I think he's going to fit in extremely well there. Flax, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, Harrison Bader has had some big playoff moments. He knows what it is to play in that type of atmosphere. Playing in Philadelphia in October is a different atmosphere. Finding a guy who is a little younger and they've got a little bit of an older roster who can fit in there with those guys that are pretty hard-nosed, willing to do some of the grindy work to get there and get over the hump. Just another opportunity for Dombrowski to show he's not afraid to make different moves. I thought it was a phenomenal move by him only having to give up 2 pieces for Bader there, because likelihood is, they could come out on the better end of that if Bader can do what he's been doing in Minnesota, which is a pretty solid bat and a very high level defender.
We're talking about a guy who's been in this scenario before. I think was really big for the Phillies. He's going to be a great rotational outfielder for them. Was excellent for the Yankees a few years ago in the playoffs. I find this to be a really solid move for the Phillies. Flax, what did the Mets acquire next?
The Mets acquired Cedric Mullins, and it was a tough day for Orioles fans, and I said it before, it would have been borderline malpractice for Mike Elias to hold on to him and do nothing, just because of what the buying price was for extra outfielders, and then amongst everyone else, he had an expiring contract. They have an insane amount of outfielders waiting for opportunities to play. It didn't make sense to hold on to him. They got 3 arms back from the Mets. I believe 2 of the 3 were rated in the Mets' top 30 pipeline. The Mets have very good arms. I'm a big fan of what they got back. I think it's exciting they got a guy back who throws 104. That's always fun, right? I mean, it's not a lot to be upset with there.
Can't be. And, I saw something on Twitter, and I really loved this overall comparison from a standpoint of what Mullins brings being a veteran. There was X amount of years ago back where the Mets went out and got Curtis Granderson for a run to the playoffs. And there was a reporter, I believe, on Twitter who was stating how much this felt like that. And in Mullins' first interview, he basically came out and said, this is really simple for me. And in simpler terms, I'm here to do whatever needs to happen for this team to win a championship. That's the only reason we're here. That's the only reason I'm here. Love that mentality. I think this was a great pickup for the Mets, and I'm sure he'll bang the Nats around a little bit before season ends.
I think that's the hardest part for Orioles fans, is that's who he has always been, is the guy who shows up to the ballpark, does it the right way, works really hard, wants to just help the team win, however his name is called upon to help the team win. And so seeing him move somewhere else, that's exactly what he's going to do. You just wish it was for your team. So moving on, the Reds acquired Ke'Bryan Hayes, third baseman from the Pirates, for infielder Sammy Stafura and left-handed pitcher Taylor Rogers, brother and twin of Tyler Rogers, who was eventually flipped to the Cubs by the Pirates in that. Kind of a confusing trade. Main piece there was Ke'Bryan Hayes moving from the Pirates to the Reds, interdivision. Yeah, interesting.
This was an interesting one. I know Reds fans were hoping to see them go out and get a third baseman with more of an offensive profile. What does Hayes do in his first game as a Red? The elite defender actually makes an error and then goes Yabo. So, listen, the big piece here is
Baseball.
really, really simple. Baseball is a crazy sport. Ke'Bryan Hayes was at one point in time considered one of the bright young players in the game. Him getting to be with a team that has playoff aspirations and is looking to make a playoff run could really change the dynamic of the player. He's always had the talent. I don't think that's a question. Excited to see what he does for the Reds.
Couldn't agree more. And then lastly, the Yankees acquired utility man Jose Caballero from the Rays for Everson Pereira and a player to be named later, or cash. And as we learn over time, as John Axford put it, on Twitter when he was traded for cash considerations. That cash considerations ended up being a $1 bill. You never really do know what these things go for. Other guys have been traded for cash that turned into a new fax machine. It just depends. But in any way, shape, or form, the Yankees acquired Jose Caballero.
Yeah, I thought the Yankees had a much better deadline than I think people gave them credit for. They knew what they needed. They went out and got it.
Don't steal my thunder.
And that was about it. So it sounds like Flax might have some more thoughts on that as we move on here. But those were the big 18 trades that happened over the last couple of days of the deadline. The biggest random fact for you of all of these things is that I'm pretty sure Taylor and Tyler Rogers are the only twins to ever be traded on the same day. It's pretty
Had
nuts.
to have been, right?
You would hope. And if we're wrong, somebody tell us, because I just can't imagine that not being correct. So I went ahead and said it. Either way, winners and losers, Flax. Am I going first or are you?
You go first. Although I will say, while we're recording the show, that guy we were talking about that brings a little piss and vinegar to a lineup just hit a 3-run bomb for the Phillies. Harrison Bader, already making his mark in Philadelphia.
Yabo for Harrison Bader. Love that, dude. Good for him. He fits it.
Good for him.
Jordan Romero. We were saying that he had that like Philly like grit. I think Harrison Bader fits in that for sure.
I agree. Yeah.
All right, so winners and losers. I'm gonna go with the one that nobody wants to hear me say, but I love it. I think the winners of the deadline is the Padres. There's no question at all in my mind. I think one thing that people forget in this sport so much is that prospects don't win you world championships. And whether people love who A.J. Preller has given up, whether they love how some of these players have turned out, and guys like Mackenzie Gore, guys like James Wood, Preller walks out every year at the deadline, normally having already put together a team that has an opportunity to win a world championship. And he says, hey, guess what? Here we are again, and we're going for it. And the one thing a lot of people have forgotten, everybody still wants their prospects. They fill the system up every single year, and they're willing to let that system go because their job is not to have the best system in all of baseball when it comes to talent. Their job is to bring a championship back to San Diego. And these types of deadlines, and this has happened before, show me that Preller is always going to pick the opportunity to win over holding on to a high-end prospect. I love it. Padres are the winner of this deadline for me.
I like that move. I think the only hard thing for me is it comes with a caveat. You have to finish it this year. You can't go and not trade a guy like a Dylan Cease who has an insanely high return value in a year where he is going to be a free agent and you're most likely not going to win the bidding war for him if you don't win the whole thing. Otherwise, you come out with a little bit of egg on your face saying, well, sorry, we didn't get what we needed.
And I love the thought process. It's heavy risk or reward. But, when I come back down to it as a fan of the game, I would always rather see my front office go for it than not, is what it comes down to. And I think there is
I agree with that.
Now in this game that we hold on to these high-level prospects and we forget that not all of them pan out. And that's okay. That's not a terrible statement. But, when you got a chance to go for it, as San Diego has for the last few years, I think you go for it. Flex, who is your winner of the deadline?
My winner of the deadline was the Yankees.
Did you just say that?
Yeah, it was. Absolutely. I mean, listen, the hard thing is that everybody's going to jump all over the Yankees because their new three-headed monster of a bullpen outside of Luke Weaver and Devin Williams with Greg Bird, Camilo Doval, and David Bednar didn't do well in Game 1 against one of the hottest teams in baseball. Whoop-de-doo. They still went and got pieces that can take you through September and into October and potentially through October. Not to mention, the biggest thing we talk about with the New York Yankees is they don't have a real third baseman. You know what they did? They went and they finally traded for the guy they've been trying to trade for 3 years in Ryan McMahon. And what's he done since he got there? He's made so many stellar defensive plays at third base, you would have thought he was a Yankee for the last 3 months. And then, on top of that, they acquire Caballero, who is a very good defensive infielder, not an outfielder. Not sure why they put him in right field. And then you go and get guys to shore up your outfield defensively, like an Austin Slater, a guy who can move into left field late in the game for a Jason Dominguez, who can play the position defensively when you need to hold down a 1 or 2 run lead, if you do things properly. The Yankees have a lot they need to work on as a baseball team, as a team to play fundamental baseball so that they can actually keep a lead, get a lead, and finish baseball games. That has nothing to do with the guys that are on the mound. You could talk about the fact that Camilo Doval had 2 guys on base when a base hit got hit to right field. But you also should talk about the fact that the base hit was a ground ball that just as easily could have gone right at an infielder. You could also talk about the fact that the ball went under Caballero's glove, and that allowed them to score 2 runs and make it a tie ball game and get the winning run to third base when it never should have happened to begin with. So all those things said, I think the Yankees were a winner at the deadline because the Yankees added the pieces they needed. They gave up a lot, but not too much. And they're a team that will outspend to fill gaps in the offseason for the pieces that need to be replaced. That's how they've always operated. That's how they will continue operating. And so they did exactly what the Padres did. They utilized what they have to do what they need to do to try and make a run for a World Series for a second straight year.
Yeah, I don't think it was as sexy as people really wanted it to be for
No.
them, but I think they filled every gap that they needed to fill, and I thought that was more than enough. I like you picking them as a winner. Moving over to the losers, Flax, who lost? Who was the loser
The
of the deadline?
Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pittsburgh Pirates. I mean, what are we doing? You very clearly are selling, but you can't decide if you're really selling. Like, you have, I believe the number was 7 expiring contracts that did not get moved. If you want to call it 6 because you don't want to move Andrew McCutchen because that would be a bad look to fans, fine. But you got Andrew Heaney, who's 34 and actually throwing well, who you could have moved to somebody who would have been happy for a left-handed arm with experience. You have an Isaiah Kiner-Falefa who can play all over the place and has actually been playing pretty well this year. A Tim Meza, another left-handed arm out of the bullpen who could be successful later in the season. Tommy Pham, who's been in the league forever, hits left-handed pitching really well. You're telling me nobody needed him? No. I'm telling you that the Pirates were too stingy for what they wanted back for the amount of pieces that they had available to give. They didn't use it enough. And then pile on top of that, the guy I said who wouldn't get moved because the Pirates would be too stingy and wouldn't get what they wanted for him because they gave him an extension, Mitch Keller. Mitch Keller is still a Pittsburgh Pirate when he's been pitching well enough to get moved for a really good return this year, and they wanted too much, I'm guessing, for what they thought they could get back for him, and nobody was willing to pay the price because they wanted to go get other players that were better and cost a little bit more, and the Pirates held on to him. That's not to say that Mitch Keller was the worst thing they did here, because you could just do the same thing again next year. The likelihood is that it's going to be a seller's market. It's generally driven by how many teams think they're still in the hunt. With the way the playoffs work now, it's pretty much everybody except for like 5 teams. So, all that long-winded to say, the Pirates didn't sell enough for being obvious sellers at this deadline. Makes them a deadline loser for me.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Too many expiring contracts, too many guys that would have brought value back to the organization. You're clearly in a situation at the current moment where you're sitting at 48 and 64. Now that's past the deadline a little bit here. I think they needed to go out and do something, and it felt like they went out and did nothing. My loser of the deadline is the Boston Red Sox. By the way, 8-2 in their last 10 Boston Red Sox, a group that's been playing extremely well. I think my biggest piece of the loss here is there was a report that came out that one of the main snags with Joe Ryan is that the Twins wanted either Jarren Duran or Willier Abreu. I fully understand not moving Duran. However, Joe Ryan has been one of the up-and-coming superstar arms in all of baseball. And the unwillingness to give up a Willier Abreu, who at the current moment has shown himself to technically be a very solid, strong side platoon bat, is a little bit mind-boggling to me if that was the snag that they ended up on. Many of you may know that Joe Ryan was a Red Sox for all of 15 seconds after Fox Sports stated that he was getting moved. Red Sox are my big losers. They're playing extremely well out of the break to begin with, and wow, how good would that group look like with Joe Ryan in that rotation? No other way to put it.
And you called it in the offseason. You said the guy I think who's going to have a big breakout year on the hill is Joe Ryan. You know, your big thing was he throws from a weird slot. It's finally going to take shape, and he's just going to continue getting better, which is exactly what he's done. Since the beginning of the season, he's continued to build on what he has learned, works and doesn't work in this league. It's really fun to watch, and I can't understand that not being the most aggressive move the Red Sox made. The hardest part about being a GM at a trade deadline is you always have to give something up. You don't get these pieces ever with the intent to move them. You get pieces with the intent to build a World Series winning roster, or at least a really good team. So it's really hard when you end up in a position where you're like, I know this guy helps us, but are we robbing Peter to pay Paul? And in some sense here, I understand the idea that are we taking from our offense to give to our pitching? In my mind, I'm thinking, well, yeah, but if Trevor Story's going to be a .310 hitter and your everyday shortstop, Alex Bregman's going to be healthy and be your third baseman. Roman Anthony's going to hit the way that he's hitting. Either one, Wilyer Abreu or Jarren Duran, continues doing what they're doing and fills that slot a little bit more holistically. Like, I don't know if you're really giving up a whole lot here when it comes to that for what you're gaining. And I think that's a move that where neither of those two guys should have been the sticking point. Now, I would have felt bad either of those guys having to make their way to Minnesota, considering the moves that team has made, because we very well could have made them a deadline loser as well, just because I don't feel like they got enough in return for everything that they gave up. But that's a whole other conversation. The only other team I'll throw out to you here that we could have considered a loser for the same reason would have been the Cubs. Because the Cubs are clearly missing a couple pieces just because of injury, and they also were not as aggressive. But we talked about this. Jed Hoyer was kind of wielding a sharp sword this offseason because he had nothing else to worry about besides 2025. Then Jed Hoyer goes and signs an extension a week before or a couple days before the deadline. All of a sudden, you see a guy who cares a little bit more about his prospects and where they end up at the end of the deadline, with him or away from him. And I think he held back a little bit on some of the aggressiveness because he really didn't want to pull back from what he was hoping the future to be of this organization.
Yeah, I felt it to be a odd hold by them. They are so deep as an organization right now.
Yeah.
The unwillingness to give up any of those guys felt a little bit odd. It does make me question, in an interesting way, a little bit about where their head is at with a Kyle Tucker extension. That's the biggest place that my mind went when they weren't as aggressive as they could have been, with the worry that maybe they don't have him on a longer-term contract. Now, the reason why I say that is because, look, I get and understand that it's one player in one spot. However, he's been everything and more for that team. That entire outfield has been an all-star outfield, no question at all. Been a very important part of the middle of their lineup. I could see them, if they can get a Tucker extension done, getting a little bit more aggressive this offseason and making some moves with their prospect capital, simply because they feel better about the long term of the outfield, and they've got a couple outfielders that they could give with no issue, and one of them is probably already ready to be at the major league level. I think that's part of their hesitation. And then the other piece of the Cubs' hesitation, if I had to guess, was the fact that, similar to the Nationals asking for him, a lot of people were looking to grab Matt Schaal if they possibly could.
Yeah.
He just was too good going into the deadline for them.
He's been much better. He's been so much better lately, and that makes it really hard to move a guy like that.
Totally agree. All right, before we get too long in the tooth here, Flax, let's end this on one prediction here for any team in the second half. I'm going to go with my own team. I'll play Homer here. Pay attention. Dylan Cruz is almost back. They're going to have one of the most fun and talented outfields in all of baseball once he gets back. Not that they didn't already. Dalen Lyle looks like a mini version of Michael Brantley, no question about it. James Wood will find his stride again. Add Dylan Cruz to that, and you've got one of the highest upside outfields in all of baseball. So on a positive note for my Nationals, who are unfortunately second to last in run differential this year, maybe something to watch in DC.
My brothers are going to hate me for this closing pick, but I think the Philadelphia Phillies do finally pull it out this year with this team. I think this is a team that is going to hit their way through the playoffs, and now having a Johan Duran in the back of their bullpen, who is now 2 for 2, 6 up, 6 down in saves, is finally going to get them over the hump from a bullpen perspective. This Phillies team is not to be reckoned with, and Mets fans, you better be excited about getting a wild card spot. That's how I feel about that division.
Yeah, the NL East has two very strong teams, and it will be extremely fun to see what happens down the stretch. As always, thank you guys for taking some time to listen, like, follow, subscribe. Listen to us on your favorite platforms to listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Don't forget to support us on socials X being where we do the most work, but also, of course, Instagram and TikTok. We appreciate you spending some of your time with us this week and listening to what we have to say about baseball. And as always, have a great week.